Now we go to our next guest. His name is Mitchell Palmer. He's an economist at the Adam Smith Institute. He joins us down the line. First of all, hello, Mitchell. How are you?
Afternoon. Well, thank you.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Mitchell. Now, I've seen here the Treasury has been floating so many stories in the media, it's hard to see what may be true, but this one seems to be gaining some traction. We see that there is now talk that Rachel Reeves is potentially going to raise income tax by 2p. But there is also what I call the sleight of hand trick, where they're also going to cut national insurance by 2p as well. Their logic is that means that someone who is payrolled will not see any tax rises, where they'll be able to somehow magically claim a working person is not having a tax rise. But if you are self-employed as a builder, a plumber, electrician, for example, this would actually have quite serious consequences for you, and I think potentially could raise £6 billion, it's estimated. I saw Sam Coates discussing there. At the same time, as well as freezing thresholds, something that Rachel Reeves said that Labour wouldn't do, just like the Conservatives said they wouldn't do before them too, that could raise another £10 billion to bail them out the black hole. I mean, do you think this would be such a serious breach of what is a very clear pledge made in the Labour manifesto the public would ever forgive her? Or do you think the sleight of hand trick with national insurance would mean that she'll get away with it?
Well, look, questions of public opinion are probably above my pay grade, to be honest. But I think what I would say is that Reeves has a serious issue on her hands. I mean, we have this 20 to 30 billion pound black hole. She made these commitments. But also, if we look at the long scheme of things, taxes in the UK haven't been higher since 1947. So if I was to diagnose Rachel Reeves's problem, it is not she doesn't have enough revenue. It is she is spending too much money.
Do you find it quite depressing that in the lead up to this budget, we're not hearing Rachel Reeves or Keir Starmer be brave enough and actually revisit serious welfare reform and cuts, where actually, if they did put that into a finance bill, the budget, for those who don't understand parliamentary procedure, a finance bill is considered a vote of confidence. If any MP of a party that is in government votes against their budget, they would automatically lose the whip. Surely this is a great opportunity for Keir Starmer to exert some pressure on his MPs and say, we simply can't keep coming back for more and more tax after already racking up taxes by £40 billion and promising even last Halloween they wouldn't be coming back for more, where it looks like another 20, 30 billion is coming down the track.
Yes, look, I totally agree. I mean, the welfare reforms that Reeves proposed last year were, probably not enough, but at least they were a start. And her backbenchers wouldn't even let her do that. I mean, if we look at, for instance, the enhanced mobility component of PIP, which is a disability benefit. I mean, eligibility for that has gone up, claims for that have gone up by something like 80% in the last 5 years. I mean, if you look on the streets, are you seeing 80% more disabled people? The reality is that the welfare bill is out of control. And to be frank, we also have to look at welfare that it goes to older people as well. Let's be honest about that. And if you are going to get a handle on the fiscals, maybe some revenue side measures are necessary to broaden the base and make the system more efficient. One thing you should probably do is take the burden off those people at that £100,000 cliff, when in fact you can lose money by earning more money, which is terrible for economic growth. Yeah. But on the whole, we would say, if you look at since 1947, taxes haven't been higher. So you've got to look at that spending side first.
And finally, from me, Mitchell, do you think that Labour will come back from raft this? Do you think if they did do the income tax increase, that will probably bail them out from having to keep coming back and raising taxes year on year, as we've seen? Do you think, at the very least, that might buy Rachel Reeves breathing room, that she wouldn't have to go through this whole process again? Or do you think that the reality is that this will just have further choking effect on the UK economy? We've seen payrolled employees down by around 100,000 since Labour came into power, and that will just add further strain to the welfare state, which means, and the NHS even now, despite having another 25 billion in the last budget, demanding more billions of pounds to deal with things like national insurance that haven't been fully funded. Do you think the reality is that she's going to have to come back for more and more unless she's willing to make very brave decisions on spending cuts?
I probably do agree with that. An income tax increase wouldn't be quite as damaging as what we saw last budget, which was the employer NI, which was a truly terrible idea. But this would still put a chokehold on growth. The reality is, I mean, I know the government talked about how the UK was second in the G7 for overall GDP growth, but if we look at GDP per capita, which is living standards and the amount of income per head that the government has to tax, there is we were second to bottom in the OECD. So if anything, this may make that growth story worse, which may force the OBR to revisit their productivity projections again. The best that Rachel Reeves can hope for is that the OBR, like they did during the last 14 years of Tory government, continues to be over-optimistic about productivity and continues to give her some headroom for free.
Yeah, well, indeed. Let's see what happens. Thank you so much. That's Mitchell Palmer, economist at the Adam Smith Institute. Thank you for joining us. I've got another guest on the line. His name's James Nation, OBE. He is a former Treasury Special Advisor. James, you've been in the building when it comes to budget time. Rachel Reeves has got one hell of a headache on her hands, hasn't she?
She does, Jonathan, and great to be with you today. I think what I just wanted to do for your viewers is maybe take it behind the scenes a little bit. Because what's happening behind the scenes is the OBR submit a cut of their forecast, what we call rounds. They give her several versions of those in private. And tomorrow, on Halloween, she gets the final cut of that pre-measures forecast. And let me explain what I mean by pre-measures. That is where the OBR judges things like productivity, the outlook and the forecast for growth will be before they take into account any government measures that are done in the budget. So what she'll find out tomorrow is how bad the black hole is that she needs to fill. Then what you'll start to see next week is a back and forth between the Treasury and the OBR over whether particular tax measures raise what she thinks or hopes they will raise. And that's why, just to be really precise, Jonathan, because I think hopefully want to nail this point. I don't think they've decided what they want to do yet. Okay. I don't think the Prime Minister and the Chancellor have made a final decision. They're going to make that final decision, I think, in days, when they start to get a flavour of, hang on, can we just cobble together something if we look at pensions, property, all the rumours your viewers will be familiar with, or do we need to break glass and go for something like a manifesto breach on the income tax side?
Interesting. And when it comes, I mean, what a day, Halloween of all days, for this to be landing on the desk of the Chancellor and indeed the Prime Minister too. I mean, out of interest, you say there behind the scenes that's going on. So a lot of kite flying is going on. Do you then normally expect to see anything that starts to drip feed out really beyond the end of next week? Do we think that's what we call then in politics terms rolling the pitch, where they start to basically outline with the public the things they're going to do in order to try and soften the blow, as you say, particularly if they are willing to break the emergency glass and breach a very clear manifesto pledge?
Well, it's always hard to say, Jonathan, and let me just illustrate what I mean. So in the summer, where you saw loads of tax speculation stories, I don't think that was the Treasury. I mean, you'll be familiar with this trick. It would have been think tanks putting their proposals out. The Treasury can't deny anything, and then hey-ho, a journalist has a story that a tax change is definitely going to happen. But now we are in a different phase. The Treasury is starting to condition things in the media. Remember that there are a lot more chefs involved in the process this time, because you've got the budget board as well and advisors around the Prime Minister who will have particular views on what to do. Someone like Torsten Bell as well will no doubt be inputting to this budget. So I do think it will be interesting what you start to see in the coming days and weeks. And my own view is you've just got to watch it slightly, because if markets think an income tax rise is baked in, Jonathan, and that's not what you're going to do, you're going to want to try and avoid a surprise on budget day. Equally, if you are going to do it, you better make sure that Labour MPs, I would argue, are ready and have the best arguments for the day, whether that's they'll have got what they want on the two-child benefit cap being lifted, or whether it's, to your point earlier, Jonathan, they do something like this switch and cut national insurance, so an MP can say on the doorstep, you know, oh, you're a working age person, you're not going to be worse off, you're actually going to be better off through this change. They're going to have to get their arguments marshalled before the budget because of where expectations are, I think. So we do need to pay particular attention to the briefing now, because I think Treasury behind the scenes, that briefing machine, will start to motor.
Rachel Reeves has started the process of saying that Brexit is to blame, that the Conservatives' mismanagement is still to blame, particularly Liz Truss, that they point to as well, the black hole they inherited, and obviously the global situation, the continuing war in Ukraine, Trump's tariffs that have obviously had an impact too. No one's denying that all those have had some element of different factors. However, do you think that the problem is that Labour was so doom and gloom? They talked down the economy so much. In fact, they briefed ahead of the election they were going to create the black hole that they then did go on to create, make decisions like axing winter fuel payments, which are politically so toxic and so unpopular that they're going to get any leniency from the British public? Or do you think there's such distrust in Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves that it's going to take one hell of a rabbit out of the hat to convince the public this isn't of their own making?
Yeah, well, I think I'm not sure talking about a productivity downgrade is going to set the pubs of the nation alight and try and get into the detail there. That's for sure. Look, the way I see this, Jonathan, is basically we've had a persistent productivity problem since post the financial crisis. Some of the factors you mentioned definitely haven't helped. That's for sure. But the one point I'd like to make here is, you're not just in receive mode when you're the Treasury with the OBR. You're not just there passively waiting for, the forecast to come your way. You're also, trying to condition what the OBR decides through government policy. And that's why I think it is totally fair enough to critique a policy like the increase to employer national insurance, because that did then pass through to inflation, and we have seen some negative consequences in the job market as well, which hasn't been great. So my point is, you've always got this worry if you're Chancellor that the OBR might decide, hang on, we're being too rosy on productivity, but it's your job through the policies that you want to try and enact as a government to try and change their minds, to try and limit the damage. So we're going to hear a lot of focus from Labour politically, I think, about what's happened in the past. But keep in mind also, Jonathan, this is about, the OBR also thinking, looking at the government's policy toolkit now, do we necessarily have confidence that things are going to improve?
James Nation there, former special advisor in the Treasury. Thank you so much for joining us and taking us behind the scenes there. Really fascinating indeed.